In this video, I'm going to be comparing the X trilogy to the Land Before Time franchise because in part 1 of this series, I compared X to Terrifier, X1. I compared Land Before Time to Secret of Nim, Land Before Time 1. We look at highest score for each franchise. In the case of Land Before Time, out of 14 movies, only 2 of them are even fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and even in that case, they're barely fresh. The first Land Before Time movie only has a 65%. In the case of the X trilogy, the middle film in the trilogy called X has a 94%. When you look at lowest score, the most recent installment in the X trilogy, Maxine, that came out in 2024, has a 72%. In the case of Land Before Time, you got 12 of these movies that are rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Lowest score is a 35% for the 13 for these movies, the 12 direct-to-video one. Then we look at average score. With Land Before Time, you have an average of 48. With X, you have an average of 86. Then we look at gap between lowest and highest score. In the case of Land Before Time, gap of 30%. In the case of X, we're talking about a gap of 22%. So X has won every round so far, thus it will be winning no matter what. Now, I've seen at this point the 3 X movies along with 7 of the 14 Land Before Time movies. Unfortunately, none of them are actually available on streaming for free. You can pay to watch them on like YouTube or Amazon Prime, but you have to pay for them. That's really unfortunate. Now, I'm definitely a fan of the X trilogy. I really appreciate how these movies are not identical to each other. They definitely feel different. The first installment, Pearl, very much takes inspiration from The Wizard of Oz. It's about this girl who's living with an overbearing mother and a father who's ill. Things are not going well for her at all. Throughout the film, we're watching her slowly go from this girl that we feel sorry for to a psychopath. We're like, ooh, this is bad by the end. And then the middle film in the trilogy called X doesn't start off all that interesting to me. It's like, oh, okay, these actors are just trying to shoot a porno. But then when the kills start to happen, when you have this old lady along with an old guy that are trying to get all these people and they're trying to survive, it becomes much more interesting. I think that Maxine is the weakest installment in this trilogy, but I still think it's good. I like that the setting is different, the time that it takes place in is different than the other films in the trilogy. But the biggest thing holding this one back is very quickly, you know exactly where everything's going. Very quickly, you see exactly who the killer is. You're like, oh, yeah, of course, she's going to be the killer. It's very obvious right away. And so that makes things not as interesting as they would be otherwise. Now, I like all the Land Before Time movies I've seen. I don't really have big problems with them. I like they're set during the time of the dinosaurs. The first film is about this group of kids that are trying to find this place called the Great Valley that's supposed to be a paradise where there's plentiful food and water along with good weather. They end up reaching the Great Valley by the end of that film. Unfortunately, for one of our dinosaurs, who's a long neck, he ends up losing his mother during the runtime, which is sad. But then when all the kids get to the Great Valley by the end, it's satisfying. Then the sequels are basically about these animals, dinosaurs, all living in the Great Valley, just trying to survive, trying to get through all the obstacles they face. It's basically a series of slice of life movies where our dinosaurs are at the Great Valley. In each movie, there's some new challenge or obstacle that presents itself, or the dinosaurs learn something new, or a family member comes by to visit, and we see how all the dinosaurs react. So I think they're all enjoyable, but overall, I think that in this case, I have to go with the X trilogy because it's more interesting. To be honest, I think it stands out more, pops more than Land Before Time does, especially because you have a movie from Disney literally called Dinosaur that feels similar to Land Before Time, deals with some of the same ideas about dinosaurs trying to reach this place that's supposed to be great. They face obstacles along the way. Of course, when you look into the details, there are differences, but you can definitely see the parallels. So in this case, it's not actually that difficult. For me, I'm gonna go with the X trilogy because even though there's a good amount of other horror films out there, other horror films that are about a killer or slasher movies or a lot of characters die, I think the X trilogy succeeds in not just feeling like another series of these movies. It's actually interesting. That'll wrap things up for this video.